success. And the Middle Grades Network is a key part of To and Through. We've been around for almost 6 years, which is kind of wild to say, very exciting. We've been partnering with schools across Chicago. We've served more than 100 educators at 22 schools and have touched almost 5,000 students in grades 5 through 8 in that time. So we're really proud of our work and our partnerships with our schools over that time. And what we aim to do is to help schools create more equitable and supportive educational environments where middle schoolers thrive. Middle schoolers have unique needs that aren't always kind of recognized and taken into account in educational environments. And we really want to focus on the unique opportunities that exist at this time and help educators figure out how can they support students' unique needs. Our aim as a network is really to increase attendance at or above 90% and GPAs at or above 3.0 for our students by really focusing on students' sense of belonging. And that's really important to us, as we really believe, and research also tells us, that when you focus on sense of belonging, helping students feel connected to school and engaged, that is what's going to lead to those positive outcomes that we all wish for our students. So we're excited to showcase some of what that work has looked like today. So here are our objectives, pretty straightforward. First, we're going to start by celebrating the accomplishments of our cohort 2 schools that have been working with us for 3.5 years and are about to graduate, as we say in MGN, and become alumni. And a couple of folks are going to represent that cohort and share their experiences and lessons learned. Then I'm going to pass it over to Naomi, who is going to talk about the amazing work of our MGN Student Fellowship and our second kind of full go at that experience and some of the exciting things our students have taught us this year. And then finally, we're going to close with the kind of most in-depth portion of the day, where our beautiful cohort 3 schools, who we've been working with for about 18 months, will present to you, and you'll get the opportunity to learn directly from them about the change ideas, the student work they've been doing, and their reflections from this past school year. Our agenda is straightforward, like I said. I'll close this out momentarily. I'll pass it to Jem to do cohort reflections, student fellowship, and then we'll close with some overall reflections from the group and a couple announcements about what's coming next. This is Teacher Appreciation Week, and since we are celebrating our schools, we absolutely have to celebrate our educators. So if folks want to use those reaction buttons, come off mute to say thank you to the amazing educators we have here today. You guys are doing
Heather, and I will definitely be there.
Important work. And especially in this time and this political climate, when a lot of the work we're doing that centers students and focuses on equity and like really thinking about what young people need, your commitment to staying in this work and doing it is more important than ever. And we admire you, we support you, we are grateful to you for all the ways you show up for each other and for your students every day. So it is just a small way to say thank you, but know that we are appreciating you today and always, and hope that you feel the love that you deserve today and throughout the week. All right. So that's kind of where I'm going to end for now, and I'm going to pass it to Jen to get us some reflections from our cohort 2 schools. Jen.
All right. Good morning, everyone. I'm really excited to be here today, and like Ashley, really excited to celebrate all the great work that is being done across our schools and for all educators in this space. Thank you so much for all that you do. We so appreciate you. So a little bit about cohort 2. These are the 7 schools that are part of cohort 2, kind of all over the city, from the north side to south side. We were at all schools throughout, and we're excited to celebrate all of them today. If you want to go to the next slide, this is something that Naomi put together for our graduation celebration. And I just loved really thinking about how much these schools have really dug in over the last 3.5 years. As you can see here, they spent over 2,000, over 2,500 minutes attending MGN network sessions. They spent almost 3,000 minutes in MGN team meetings. They were doing inter-reflection work and equity work at every single meeting, making up for almost 500 minutes of time. They were looking at tons of different data, all while being full-time educators, and really thinking about how to best improve students' middle grades experiences. So if you go to the next slide, I don't know if Miss Collins has made it on yet, but I do know that Elsa is here for sure. So I'm going to pass it to Elsa to talk a little bit about their experience, and really, yes, Ritson, singing that Seasons of Love for sure. But Elsa's going to talk a little bit about their overall experience in the network and kind of what they learned over these years. These reflections come from the graduation that we had just a couple of weeks ago. So I'm really excited to hear from Elsa and have her share a little bit about what they learned.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Elsa from Talcott. I'm the school counselor here. And yes, we had the pleasure to be part of our MGN. This is our 3rd year. So if we can change the slide to the next one, that would be awesome. Yes. So some of the things that we wanted to discuss is that we had the conditions for success, right? MGN gave us the conditions to help our students succeed. And you can see on the screen, one of them, it's dedicated time and space for the team itself to plan, to analyze the data, and then to get it together to develop our ideas, to be able to then motivate the students, conference with the students, do all the community builders, do all that stuff. But time is the most precious resource that we have, right? And we never have enough. So MGN gave us the framework to be able to meet, starting with the summer institutes and then meeting the bi-weekly meetings here at the school. So that was great. And then we had, for us and for the students, we had the encouragement to try new things and not be afraid, right? The teachers were able to do new lessons, shadowing students, interviews, focus groups. And then the students had the opportunity to try new things and being able to represent their own voices to the students and to the teachers and to MGN. And we did this, I think, because we had a lot of personalized support from MGN. Those meetings, bi-weekly meetings, were very helpful to regroup, always because there's so many things happening at the schools, right? So many new things happening always. But we had these bi-weekly meetings that okay, let's go back. Let's go back to what we said we were going to do and do it, right? So that was the personal support was super helpful for us. And then we're able to give that personalized support to our students. And of course, the data, all the data that MGN provided for us through Elevate survey or all the tools, the To&Through tools, they really help us see quantitative data, right? And then we had the qualitative data where we were able to see a bigger picture of where we were and where we wanted to go. If we can switch the slide, that would be great. And then biggest mindset shifts, student voice, right? We got first of all, we got a very deep understanding of the brain of the students, what's happening in their brain. That was super big, right? Their developmental stage, like they're big toddlers, and we need to see them with love and all those risks, taking the stuff that they do. We need to be patient and make sure we treat them with love and respect, because they're not trying to get under our skin. They're just simply trying, and it's part of nature, right? They want to be independent, just like a toddler, right? So we gotta allow that safe risk taking, and then treat them with a lot of respect and love. And then also the release of control. They are becoming little adults, right? So we need to start releasing the control and letting them get together, get their voices together, and be able to express their needs and wants in a safe space. But they gotta start having ownership, right? So that release of control and letting them have ownership, right? And letting the students guide us too, right? What is it that they want to learn, or how do they want to learn it? At least the how. So we have their engagement. And then like I said, that understanding of why the kids are responding in a certain way to our lessons, to our the way we're teaching them, right? Understanding that there's a why, and then adapt to that. They're not trying to get, like I said, under our skin, or they're not trying to be rebellious. They just have needs, and we need to figure out the root causes of those needs so we can figure out how to best support them, for them to learn from us. And yes, having them express their voice is the biggest change, I think, because then they feel heard, and that's what they want. They want to be heard. They want to change the world, and they want to have a say in the decision making. So I think that is huge. So empowering the students to become those independent individuals we want was a big shift for us. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Elsa, for sharing that. I think it really shows like how much, cohort 2 really dug into this work and really, valued student voice and really thought about the data and the time and all of those things. So thank you so much for sharing that. I believe Miss Collins made it in. So I'm really excited. I know that she was having some problems getting Zoom onto her computer. So sorry to throw you right in, Miss Collins, but you are up next. So thank you for sharing your thoughts on the next slide.
Hi, can you hear me? Awesome. So the ability to gather rich, detailed, qualitative data has really been incredibly helpful to me and my team here at South Shore. It enables us to monitor student progress beyond what our quantitative data is already showing us. So a quick like quarterly survey like Elevate or something that happens semesterly like Cultivate really gave us that check-in point to help us gain insights into the changing social dynamics of the students in our classroom, and also gave us the ability to see there any emotional or behavioral challenges that there might be facing that we might not be talking about in our classes. Students who are facing individual challenges, we were able to have a way to connect with them in a way that doesn't necessarily make them feel self-conscious, like we're looking at you and we're picking on you, because everyone's doing it and we can check in with everyone. By collecting evidence of the student experience, we're able to target the specific students and their needs, and we can see the common trends among the different groups of them. And it can help us continuously work on building our classroom and our school communities. The students get to feel heard and they get to feel seen because they are being heard and they are being seen, and they can see the changes that they're asking for in their classrooms and in their school. So it really makes them feel like the adults can be trusted because we're following through on the things that they are saying is important to them. As teachers, we're constantly making adjustments and we're realigning our goals, but all of this data really gives us some immediate feedback on what's working and what's not working in our classroom and the effect that it might be having, either intentionally or unintentionally. Um, it allows us to be more intentional with our action steps. I'm sorry, they're all looking at me right now. Um, allows us to be more intentional with our action steps because we're able to dig deep into what's actually going on and look at what's happening with them. And we get to see that not only do you know if the students are on track or if they're not on track, but what that means for that student. So are they on track academically, but they're not on track attendance wise? Are they on track with attendance, but they're only struggling in one class, and that one class is really what's bringing their on track data down? So we can go and we can talk to them and we can meet with them about what they need so that they can get the support that they need to feel successful. Our cohort, I guess that's, you could, thank you. Our cohort had a few of our biggest takeaways are connected to two big ideas: adolescent brain development and teamwork. Our idea with adolescent brain development is basically that middle schoolers' brains are different. They're different from primary brains, they're different from intermediate brains, they're different from high school brains. And with that, you have to treat them differently. They have different needs and they're going through different things and they experience the world differently. So we really need to be meaningful and be thoughtful with how we are connecting with them. In some of our quotes you can see on the screen, we need to understand adolescent development to address student needs. Middle schoolers' emotional needs are directly tied to their learning. That's a big one. I know people love to talk about how many emotions middle schoolers have, but we don't really talk about how those emotions might be affecting their learning. And gathering all of this data really helps us to see the connection between the two so that we can give them, again, the support that they need to be successful here. Middle schoolers are a special age, and we need to treat them as such. Be intentional about gaining and learning from student voice experience and incorporating it into planning. That idea of collecting data just to collect data, the students can tell if they're just taking surveys left and right and you're not doing anything with that information. It makes them not want to be as invested in it. But with the way that we're doing it and the way that we're constantly being hands on with this data and using it to update what we're doing in our classroom, it really helps them feel like, oh yeah, they do care. They're not just saying that they care, they do care. And then all of this data has actually really brought us together as a team. Um, Teamwork makes the dream work is a real idea. A team that dreams together really can succeed together because we have common goals and we can bring together what we want to see within our community, and then we can actually do it together. We don't need anybody else. We could just do it with ourselves. Um, we need to ensure that all stakeholders are involved in the process so that we're involved, that students are involved, that admins involved, parents are involved, community leaders are involved, everybody's involved. We're all in this together and we're all connected with each other. Our team became more communicative and collaborative. Very, very, very true. I don't know if that's true for everybody, but I know it's definitely true for South Shore. We are talking with each other and we're using different words when we talk to each other. So we're being more authentic in the way that we're talking to each other. And we're also choosing kindness when we're talking to each other. We're choosing to remember that not everybody is bringing the same things to the table and not everybody's in the same place and that we're all human. And that grace that we have with our students is the same grace that we have for each other. And then that the building a strong and efficient team focused directly on the success of middle schoolers is important. If we have that same goal and we're aligned in our goal, then we can achieve anything. And there's nothing that we can't do because we will be working with each other towards what we ultimately need and what we want.
Thank you, thank you, thank you so much, Ms. Collins, for sharing that. I know you were trying to do double duty there, and it was admirable how well that went. So thank you for that. So thank you so much to Ms. Collins, to Elsa for sharing for the entire cohort 2 groups of schools, this work that they have done. They have done such incredible work over the past 3.5 years, and I can't be more grateful to them. So I am going to pass it to Naomi now to talk a little bit about the Student Fellowship. And thank you again, and put all the flowers in the chat for Ms. Collins and Elsa for sharing out for us, and we really appreciate you.
I just have to second that so much. I love these schools. I've loved working with them. I've worked with South Shore, coached them. I've seen Talcott Network sessions, and they have just been dedicated to the work, that both of them, since the beginning. And thank you so much. I know it's hard to get away from classrooms. And so we appreciate you. That just gave me all the feels. Okay, wonderful. So now let's talk about some student voice incorporation. And I really like how both of them tried to, kind of weave that into what they were discussing. A lot of people talk about student voice, and we're trying to figure it out. We're trying to figure out how to incorporate it in a really meaningful way. So we want to talk about that today. So just a little look at the Middle Grades Network journey. It is a 3.5-year partnership. As you can see, South Shore and Talcott are at year 3 of the partnership. So they're, come to the end of their time with MGN. And as you can see, the educators follow a journey, right? They're really trying to understand, make sense of the data they're getting from their students. But student voice and student input has to be part of this journey. So at the Middle Grades Network, we have this incredible student fellowship experience. When I left the classroom and I was able to find a role that still allowed me to be able to work directly with students, I said, oh my goodness, this is amazing. And so when Ashley kind of thought of this idea, it was how can we actually make student voice part of the Middle Grade Network journey? So we wanted to make sure that students had a space to really share their voice in authentic ways, to help develop ideas, and to really make sure the data that they were
some of the student experience data was actually something was being done about it, right? So oftentimes you have all this data, what do you do about it, right? Or, how do we make sense of this data? How are students actually experiencing their classrooms? So with that came the fellowship. So schools nominate 2 to 4 students. We really try to look for non-traditional students and really try to figure out where are the leaders in this space to really help push that work, speak for themselves and speak for their peers. During the fellowship, we connect students with other middle grade students. I always say to them, like, y'all are in a room of history. You've brought middle grade students from all over the city together to talk about what's going on in your schools, what are the things you're struggling with, what are the things your teachers doing well, and how can we collaborate to try to improve some of our experiences. We really want to help develop their leadership skills. We analyze data, and we really do have a lot of fun. So as Ashley stated, I'm going to talk about a little bit about the cohort 3's student fellowship experience. But before that, we did want to share some of the insight that cohort 2 gave about the student adult partnerships based on their experience. So what have they learned about the importance of student adult relationships? They really, it really allows students to feel heard. It builds trust in positive relationships. Some of the things you were hearing from both Elsa and Ms. Collins. Partnering with students takes the guessing out of the middle school game, right? There are so many things happening with their brains during this time, so many things that might be confusing. When you partner, that's gone. So really try to figure out what's going on by going to the source. Key unlearning, instead of pushback, just listen. Just listen, which I know can be hard. There's a million things going on in classrooms, but sometimes it just takes that 2 minutes. It takes that, okay, maybe the student has told me the same story 17 times, but I'm still going to listen and I'm still here because that really means a lot to their students. Students and adults both benefit, all right? Students feel heard and adults benefit from hearing from students directly. Student adult partnerships are vital in order to have student buy-in. That is so key. Ms. Collins kind of talked about the data that they've worked through and said, if a student's taking a survey and you don't think they're going to do anything about it, they're not going to take it seriously. So I think students being able to see, one, other students going into the fellowship, they see that students are bringing data back, that students are creating ideas based on that data can be very powerful. So you better continue to be intentional. This allows students to feel heard. It builds positive, trusting relationships. And then I really loved this one. It means everything to some kids. And I'm gonna even push that to say all kids, right? It might mean a little bit more to the student over here, but it really does mean a lot. And lastly, when students feel included, involved, they will help build the bridge of student-teacher relationships, right? Sometimes, the perception of what you're doing for students is not really seen. You're like, I'm doing this, I'm showing teacher caring, I really feel like I'm building community, but that might not be perceived by your students. So really trying to build that bridge of the student-adult partnership helps with that as well. So what did that look like this year? So taking from cohort 2, we have kicked off our second cohort of fellows in cohort 3. We do a visiting lunch tour every year, so I wanted to kind of give a little insight of this. This is some action that's going on. We have some students talking with educators. We have students from Chalmers, after their town hall, and really coming together to really try to build community within the space, but then also really try to understand what is their role as a student fellow. So we really wanted to make sure this year that we provided that space for them, spaces to talk about some of the things we're doing in the fellowship, and really trying to make sure that their voices are heard. Speaking of their time in the fellowship, here's a few pictures from our kickoff in October and our end of year celebration in April. Every year, the students have 4 sessions. The first session is in person. We bring all the students to the university. They participate in community builders, leadership activities, and of course, they analyze their data. And that goes back to their teachers. So you're seeing just a couple of snapshots. Find someone who we did a community norm stand-up. We had students create collages of what they wanted to see more of or less of next year. And as well, always a little silly picture because we love to have fun at the Student Fellowship. So a little bit of a sneak peek to what our Student Fellows experienced this year. So, like I said, the Student Fellowship is a space to make sure that we are diving a bit more into the data that their teachers are getting and trying to gather as much data as possible. So, what we wanted to do at the end of this year is we wanted to get their perspective on an area of strength from their teachers this year. So we kind of pulled from the learning conditions and tried to see what have your students or what have your teachers done well. And by far and large, the students reported that there was more areas of strength and areas of improvement this year. We really thought this idea of them taking their ideas seriously was wonderful. That's kind of the purpose of the Student Fellowship. So really wanted to make sure that we shared that what you're doing, your students do see. I know sometimes we want to make sure we celebrate those wins with our educators. So this was some of their perspective of the areas of strength from their teachers of this year. And always, we want to just give the other side of some areas of improvement. But something to kind of share is that this was this feedback was not as much as the others. So definitely saying that there was more areas of strength and improvement. So really trying to figure out where are the areas next year that teachers might want to focus on when we're thinking about planning over the summer. What might be some of the learning conditions we want to focus on? Are we focusing on meaningful work? Are we, continue to diving into classroom community, really trying to figure out how to support their students for next year. And this was shared back with their teachers to ensure that the educators can kind of make that data-informed decision moving forward. All right, we did this wonderful activity that we actually brought back to their teachers where the students were in their table groups and they had to think about what is most important to Chicago Public Schools middle grade students. So they had 60 beads on a table and the only rules were they had to divide them accordingly and no box could have the same amount of beads. So by far and large, having a real authentic relationship with their teachers and their teachers asking about things that are going on in their life was the highest rated area with 20 beads, 15 beads. Students really focused on that. I'm not going to lie, I definitely thought it was having social time with their peers, which we know is important, but really sitting down, like that was the immediately, I'm not sure with other tables, but that was the first thing that students went to. And we really understand how important that is, especially when thinking about student-adult partnerships, thinking about what's developmentally appropriate for middle grade students, and really thinking about how we can support that. Here's a little pick at what they did at their tables. As you can see, I think there was one table that was definitely about social time, which is totally great. But you see that many students were really saying, having a real relationship with their teachers was really important. All right, so what did that look like? What were our outcomes this year? So 100% of students either strongly agree or agree that they enjoyed participating in the fellowship. The MGN Student Fellowship has helped use their voice as a leader. That's helped them learn about data and how to make their school experience better, and has helped them develop ideas to bring back to their schools and peers. 100% of the students said yes or maybe to wanting to participate in the Student Fellowship next year. We specifically chose 5th to 7th graders so that we could loop with the same group. Many teachers who might have looped before knows the importance of, being able to start with familiar faces and understanding of the fellowship itself. So we're really happy to build on what we've been able to do this year. So some quotes from our students. I really like the Student Fellowship. It helped me grow and I want to come back. Thank you so much for the opportunity. And I really liked this and it made me feel welcome. Some highlights, 96% attendance at the final session. As you can imagine, getting close to 30 students from 7 schools across the city with 3 different bus routes can be very challenging, but I think we had one student that wasn't there, so we really were excited about that. All schools had a visiting lunch tour. Some students actually attended an MGN meeting. You might be able to see some of that during the breakout rooms today. There was a student design t-shirt. And students were really exposed to different types of data and they were able to develop their leadership skills. All right, so I'm going to start to transition us into the cohort 3 presentations. We're very excited to share that with you. But before we do divide into our breakout groups, we want to give a little bit of understanding of what you're about to see. And before doing that, I kind of want to give some key words and phrases. So you probably heard me say some of these, but we kind of just want to give you all an idea of what you're going to see and hear, words that are going to be used. Elevate and cultivate, two of the surveys that we use are research-based student experience surveys that kind of focus on the 9 learning conditions. You probably heard me say that a few times, and I'll talk about that in just a bit. Elevate really focus on the classroom level, while Cultivate focus on school-wide trends, but both really capture how students are experiencing their classrooms and daily learning environments. The learning conditions are the area of focus for Elevate and Cultivate. So there are 9 learning conditions that are available on each survey. With MGN, we focus on 5, but students had a chance, or excuse me, schools had the opportunity to determine whether or not they wanted to do all 9. You'll see the bolded ones are the ones that we really focused on this year: classroom community, feedback for growth, meaningful work, student voice, and teacher caring. So there's prompts that are given to students that will ask them about how they're experiencing that classroom. So for example, classroom community, one of our biggest prompts that we are always trying to learn more about is I feel comfortable sharing my thoughts and opinions in class. You'll probably see a little bit of that in your breakout rooms today. Thank you so much, Alex, for dropping that in the chat. A change idea. So this is a data-driven practice shift developed and tested by educators to help improve the learning conditions. So really trying to figure out like, okay, we've got this data. What do we want to do as a result of this data? And is this idea actually working? So you'll see that many of our schools have some of similar change ideas. What we've learned in the past, and I'll get into this in just a second, is there's a few learning conditions that are always going to come up. And there are some things that we've seen over the past few years that have continued to work. So as you can see on the next couple of slides, some schools do have similar change ideas, and I'll get to that in just a second. The primary driver are the big topic or areas that MGN schools work on in order to achieve their goal. So for the primary driver, you're either focusing on student-educator relationships or peer-to-peer relationships. That is determined based on the data. And then the secondary driver are the actions or interventions that are used necessary to achieve the primary driver's goal. Secondary drivers could be used to identify changes that can be tested. MGN schools use a learning condition as their secondary driver. So for example, you're going to see on the next slide, the school's learning condition, the school's change idea, the primary driver and secondary driver. So as you can see here, our schools were focusing on the relationship type, which is that primary driver, the learning condition, which is the secondary driver, and then the change idea. As you can see, you see a lot of question of the day. You see some community building. You're going to see student-led discussions. MGN has been able to create a wonderful change idea menu that I'm going to show in just a second. That has really been something that we've seen our schools that has been really helpful for them, right? So I think something that is beautiful about the classroom is some things can continue to work, right? Some things are going to have to change, but we wanted to provide our schools with a starting point, right? Sometimes we kind of get stuck in the data and we're like, what are we supposed to do? Well, here's an example. Let's try this. So you'll be able to see that during the breakout rooms as well. Same here with our other 3 schools, focusing on the relation type, the learning condition, and then also the change idea. Jen has already dropped it in the chat, but this is just kind of a snapshot of what that change idea menu looks like. Our schools had an opportunity to choose this at their Summer Institute programming last summer. This was based on the data that they had gotten from spring 2024, and really kind of focuses on what can you do at the beginning of the school year, and then what can you do once you know your students. So that link is dropped in the chat if that's something you want to learn a little bit more about. All right, it's a breakout room time. So here's the protocol. You're going to be able to see one cohort 3 school presentation. You will select your school breakout room based on what you want to learn more about. Okay. There is schools will be in breakouts for 30 minutes. It'll be about 20 minutes for the presentation and 10 minutes for Q&A. And then you'll be brought back to the main room at the end of the presentation for a closing. This is really fluid, organic, y'all. It's just, we want to make sure our schools are showcased for the amazing work they've done this year. But feel free to ask questions. That's what it's there for. You're going to see what's worked, maybe what hasn't, and then we'll be able to go from there. So I believe Ashley should be getting our breakout rooms done. Do we have any questions, points of clarification? You can drop those in the chat and hopefully I can answer them. I don't think so. Okay. So choosing a breakout room, school's presentation, Q&A, and we're almost ready to go.
All right, I'm opening the rooms now. All right. Welcome back, everyone. I hope you enjoyed that experience and got to learn a little bit about our amazing schools. I was jumping around a little bit because I just wanted to hear a little bit from everybody. It's always exciting. I love this session and like just the opportunity to have our schools talk directly about their work and share with everyone kind of what they've learned and what they've been going through. Before we kind of transition to our close, I would love to get some reflections from folks in response to this question. Or if you also just want to share any general kind of reactions to what you heard from our schools and what you're kind of taking away from this space today. So feel free to come off mute. We'll kind of do this organically, but would love to just hear some thoughts and reactions to this question or to what you heard in the presentation that you joined.
We can say something.
Yeah, go
Hi,
for it.
We're from Hibbard Elementary School, and we were in the session with Bud Long. One of the things that stood out was how they created a school-wide kind of vision, but they included the students' input. And one of the things that they realized was that the kids' feedback was, hey, we also want to have fun. And so they included joy as part of their vision. And I also really like the fact that they included accountability. So accountability for ourselves, but accountability for others. And I think that that spoke to like what they did throughout the presentation. They included an 8th grade presenters. They went to the little kids and they presented one of the issues they had as a school. And so it just came back to like, I'm going to be held accountable. How can we keep each other accountable? And so the biggest takeaways around student voice and making that impact. And if we want to see change, that the kids have to be a part of it.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that. Yeah, I think that's a really important part of our work. I think that's what we hope the fellowship helps schools understand, as well as the process of using so much of that qualitative data and student experience data that we know is incredibly important to understanding what students are actually experiencing every day and how that impacts everything else about their learning. Thank you so much. Other thoughts or reactions?
Yes. Shout out to Brian and Jan. One of the things that stood out for me was just really a commitment to just continuously improve and to iterate and refine the practice, like the change strategies, and really thinking about different ways to capture, feedback from students on how they're experiencing those change ideas and just how to iterate, like that commitment to that, as opposed to like, this isn't working and we're just abandoning the whole thing, right? Like scrapping it. And then also just, and I know this is connected to the student fellow work, but just that capacity building for students to lead and participate in data conversations. We know that can be a lift for adults, right? So like just also thinking about the intentionality of how that work is happening with students so that it can really lead to more authentic partnership when you are bringing youth and adults together.
Beautiful. Well said, Nick. Thank you for that. Yeah, I like really appreciate you highlighting the continuous improvement part of this. Like continuous improvement is kind of core to our strategy, right? Like to your point, this work is ongoing. It doesn't stop. It's always changing. You're changing as a human. Your students are changing. The conditions are changing. It's never done, but that doesn't mean you're not making progress and growing. And it's okay for stuff to not work. What's important is to keep trying and figure out what will work in that moment. So I appreciate that. And the capacity building for both the students and adults together is really key. So thank you. Dom, I see you came off of mute.
I was just gonna, yeah, I think that came up a lot in our group as well. And just I think I think one thing that I particularly love about this work is just an acknowledgement that like all of us are still developing our skills around leading discussions and interpreting data. This is not something that just stops or that we have to have solved in middle school. But the opportunity, Faye put it really nicely in our breakout. But, I think part of this work is just creating multiple opportunities for students to get those reps and develop some of these foundational skills that we know they're going to be continuing to develop over the course of their life, and just making sure that, when you're 22 is not the first time that you have an opportunity to try that out, right? Really starting that early. So just appreciate that acknowledgement that this is really ongoing work, and really appreciate all the work that schools are doing to give those students those opportunities.
Thank you. Let's get one more reflection and then we'll kind of transition to our close.
Ashley, I can share.
Yeah, thanks, Nikki.
Sorry, I don't know how to raise my hand in Zoom because we don't use it. But I just want to shout out the Warren team. They had a slide at the end of what they learned through the process, and they had a sticky note that said, teachers have individualized needs just as students have individualized needs. And really appreciated how the team was really thoughtful about supporting the teacher change in this space. And you could tell that the teacher leaders through MGN were really serving as models for this, and also using the data really strategically to help support that change management process so that teachers would use the student voice meaningfully in their classrooms and not be defensive through that process. So shout out to them for that work.
Thank you so much, Nikki. Yeah, I think making teachers feel supported and empowered through this process is really important to us as an MGN team, and something we really focus on. So I'm excited to hear that came through, and that you can see that in how the schools show up in these presentations, but also we as coaches and as a team see how they show up in that way every day, and how they're vulnerable and push their own thinking to really better support each other and their students. So thank you for calling that out. Awesome. Naomi, you can go 2 slides ahead, I think. All right. So we're going to close with just kind of some reflections and next steps about kind of where we're going and kind of what are some big takeaways from this experience overall. I think it's been showing up in chat a little bit. I appreciate folks for adding their thoughts there. We always love some action in the chat. Yesterday, I had the honor of being at a forum put together by our colleagues from the Learning and Development Group at the consortium. And one of the kind of quotes that stuck out to me, and I think it kind of came up in the chat too, is we can't change outcomes without changing students' daily experiences. And I think so much of this work with MGN is really helping folks understand the intersection between those two things and how they work together to set students up for success. And that's really what MGN is about, right? We want to create spaces where students feel like they belong, because we know when that happens, they feel empowered, valued, and capable of shaping their own futures and accessing the full range of post-secondary options that are available to them, to being successful in all the ways we want for them to be successful. So I want to kind of close out with some quotes. So next slide, please, Naomi. There's a lot of quotes on here, but there's a couple I want to highlight. So Naomi, if you'll click. I think the first one, and I think this came up in a lot of the conversations, is like, for our educators, what we often hear is that MGN is a space for them to organize and grow in ways that they don't often have the time and space. I think particularly as middle grades educators in a district that is very that is K-8 in its structure of our elementary schools, the unique needs of the teachers can often get lost, right? Middle grades teachers need different things and need spaces to collaborate as well. And I think MGN has created a space for educators to do that, and we're really proud of being able to create that space for them and helping them figure out how to organize their work and be strategic in ways that can really support what they know their students need. Click again, Naomi. I did some fun little animations here today. So conveying to students that their thoughts, ideas, and experiences are valuable will lead them to wanting to attend class. I think this is right, this is the crux of it. Like I just said, the belonging, the student voice, the partnership with the educators and the adults in the building, that is what gets kids engaged, particularly at this time during this developmental stage. And if we focus on that, all the outcomes we want will come. I think sometimes it can be so easy to focus on the accountability and the grades and the attendance and the on-track rates and the test scores. But none of that matters if students don't want to be there and if they're not in the building in the first place, right? So I think that really kind of captures the essence of the importance of that. I also think this came up a lot today as well. Data doesn't have to be a huge undertaking, right? It's really about how do you make data accessible? How do you use it strategically? How do you use multiple forms of data to ask questions and be curious about what the data is not telling you, which is really big for us as a To&Through team. We talk a lot about data isn't the whole story. It's just part of a bigger picture. And it should really force you to ask questions and think deeply and critically about what do I not know? And then go to the source, which is going to be your students or your peers, the other educators in your building, to really understand what's happening. And then finally, I think, the why and the roles that we play. Somebody mentioned this, I think, early in the cohort 2 presentation. I think it was Ms. Collins and actually Elsa may both have mentioned that coming back to that why is really key, I think, for this work and can help you remain focused, strategic about what you're doing and why. And I think it also is a good reminder that you don't have to do everything yourself, right? We're all part of a bigger system that's trying to create better opportunities and spaces for students to thrive. And if you work on your one piece and access your assets and what you're best at to do that in service of students, and everybody does that, collectively, we will get students to where we know they want to be and to all the great things that we want them to accomplish. So I think recognizing that we are all part of a bigger whole and the individual and unique roles we can play in that is also really key. Next slide. So I really just want to close by saying a huge, huge thank you to all of our amazing educators. Please feel free to add any final affirmations or shout outs in the chat for anybody whose presentation you join. Really, really appreciate everyone's contributions. We have such amazing educators that we get to partner with, and it truly is an honor to do this work with alongside each of you. We are recruiting for our fourth cohort this fall, which is super exciting. So if you don't know about MGN and you're curious and you're like, this seems like a great space for me and I'd like to learn more, please fill out our interest form and we will reach out in the fall when we officially kick off recruiting for our new cohort. And we can also have further conversations about that. We also highlighted our change idea menu today, which is one of many middle grade success resources that are in our middle grade success library. So we encourage you to check that out if you want to learn more about some of these practices and take them back to your own school. And then finally, we also kind of have this history of capturing the stories of all of our schools over time. So if you want to hear more about our cohort 1 schools, which was our first cohort during the pandemic, and our cohort 2 schools that Elsa and Ms. Charisse talked about, you can also check out our improvement stories to learn more about what the MGN journey has been overall. So I encourage you to check that out. And then last but not least, just a quick plug, next slide, for some other upcoming To&Through events that are coming up, like go back one slide, Naomi, sorry. Our Milestones Workshop 101, which is one of To&Through's kind of most famous tools that we're known for, where you can see outcomes data for students from 6th grade through college graduation on our publicly available tool. We're doing a session with the Partnership for College Completion about college transfers and a report they have coming out. A data collaborative with Noble. Our annual Kegs and Cases event is coming in June, as well as a data collaborative with MICVA Challenge, which also focuses on student voice. So a lot of great ways to stay connected to us and our work, both at MGN and To&Through broadly. And we hope that we will get the opportunity to see you again soon. I'm going to let Dom say one quick thing before we close and then let everybody go early.
Last thing, I just want to highlight a lot of the love that is in the chat for you, Ashley, Naomi, and Jen. And just wanted to name you all are incredibly humble leaders. And so I want you to also take a moment to just stand in your shine for folks that know these three, know that there is a ton of intentionality, passion, and dedication that exists for both students and educators in this work. And we deeply, deeply, deeply appreciate your leadership here with To&Through and all the work that you do for this. So thank you all. And wanted to also just make sure you all read all of these comments because they're very true and you're doing amazing work.
Thank you, Dom, and thank you everybody again for joining us. We so appreciate your presence here today. We'll give you back some time early. This was our first time doing this fully publicly, so we weren't sure how long it would take. So we got it done in an hour. So lesson learned. But we really appreciate you all. Have a great day, and we hope to see you at another To and Through or MGN event soon.